Hello, dear friends. Patrick here. June 6th, 2024, the anniversary of June 6th, D-Day, of course. I hope you're doing well. How are you doing today? I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be doing a book review of The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. Picked this up at a thrift store the other day for the tidy sum of, I don't know if you can see that, $2. Imagine. Value Village sells books, and they're actually expensive at Value Village, $5 or $6 a book. But if you go to thrift stores and antique shops and book fairs and, you know, around the area, your local area, you'll probably be able to find books from anywhere from 50 cents to $2. So some of the most valuable information that you can find is through books, and yet it is some of the least expensive things that you can spend your money on. Original price showing at the bottom of $19.50. I don't know where that was sold at that price, but anyway. So yeah, I just thought I'd share with you. I've started the book and I've covered the first chapter, which is called the Eyewitness Evidence. There is a number of different chapters here. I'll just mention the names of them. The Eyewitness Evidence, testing the eyewitness evidence, documentary evidence, the corroborating evidence, the scientific evidence, the rebuttal evidence. Part 2 is the identity evidence, then the psychological evidence, the profile evidence, the fingerprint evidence, pardon me, the medical evidence, evidence of the missing body, evidence of appearances, and circumstantial evidence. And then the conclusion. So this guy, Lee Strobel, was an investigative journalist. He was a skeptic and at one time atheist. And after, studying as much evidence as he could gather, he came to the conclusion, obviously, that Jesus was genuine. And I want to point out to you anything that happens to jump out at me as we go through this. So from the first chapter, I thought I would just share with you, he mentions here that the two earliest biographies of Alexander the Great were written by Arrian and Plutarch more than 400 years after Alexander's death in 323 BC, yet historians consider them to be generally trustworthy. In other words, people say, well, Alexander the Great, yeah, of course he was this great figure of history, but his biographies were written 400 years after his death. The biographies of Jesus, the Gospels, were written in the first century, within a lifetime of his death. 60 AD, 70 AD, depending on who you talk to. Generally, it would be the Gospel of Mark being the first in the 70 AD time frame, then Matthew and Luke in about the 80 AD time frame, and then John in about 90 AD, which are all, even the latest one, John is within 60 years. 33 AD is considered the time that the ministry of Jesus, the crucifixion and resurrection, and Mark was written within 40 years of that. So a big difference. That was one fact that jumped out at me, and I wanted to mention something for you here on page 35, and it is the quote from 1 Corinthians 15 that you're probably familiar with. And this is the problem that atheists will say, well, no, they reject it outhand and they don't want to listen to it. They say it's fairy tale, whatever. But you have to remember the Bible is a collection of different documents, different letters, different biographies, different accounts. And so this letter from 1 Corinthians 15, and Paul is describing his circumstance here. He says, for what I received, I passed on to you as of first importance. So he's writing this letter to a group of people, and he said the most important thing, that Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures, that he was buried, that he was raised on the third day according to the scriptures, and that he appeared to Peter and then to the 12. After that, he appeared to more than 500. This is after he rose from the dead, of the brothers at the same time, most of whom are still living, though some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James, then to all the apostles. He's writing this account, and he's saying that he appeared to hundreds of people after he rose from the dead, and he's saying some of those people are still alive. So he wrote that within the lifetime of the people that had witnessed it firsthand. And the point is this, he says, if the crucifixion was as early as AD 30, Paul's conversion was about AD 32, 2 years later. Immediately after Paul went to Damascus, there he met a Christian named Ananias. That's recorded, right? His first meeting with the apostles in Jerusalem would have been about AD 35. Around that time is when he would have been discussing these things. And the fact is that this letter was written before the Gospel of Mark. Where is it here? I'm going to find that for you, and I'll put it in the comments if I find it shortly. But in any event, he's talking about this passage from 1 Corinthians. I've read it before, and I've seen it before, I've heard it before, and you sort of forget about it. But the context of what he's saying is that they are writing in the first century. They're saying there's some people here that were eyewitnesses. Paul was not an eyewitness to the crucifixion, even though he wrote a lot of the New Testament. He wrote a lot of the letters and encouraged people. So he had his own revelation, seeing Christ on his Damascus Road experience, if you want to call it that. I don't know if you can hear me if I lean back too far. But when he was writing that letter to the Corinthians, there were multitudes of people that had seen the miracles, they had seen the resurrection, they had seen the experience, the resurrected Christ, and they were still alive at the time that he was writing that letter. So this first century amalgamation and documentation is extensive, and I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's just a reminder. These are things that are not new to me. I've known before, but he's compiled them and put them together in such a way that makes it quite readable. He's presenting it as a discussion between him and various scholars that he interviews to research this book, and it's very well researched. It's got a lot of footnotes and documents, and it's got an extensive list of index and notes and list of citations. It's got an extensive list of citations. Now, this was published in what year was this published in? Let's get the date on it, just so we know where we're at. 1998. So this is already 26 years old. And so, as I said, I finished the first chapter. So far, it's very good. And we'll be moving on to different chapters of evidence. And it's a shame because atheists are always saying, oh, give me evidence, give me evidence, give me evidence. But if you present them evidence, they say, oh, that's not evidence. That's the problem, right? They will reject anything that has to do with Christ because they are blinded by their own mind. They're blinded by the infinite influence of the enemy of humanity that wants to cover up their mind and soul and spirit from accepting that. And that is the spirit of deception that has gone out into the world and has blinded a large portion of the population from the truth of who Christ was, and that's a real shame. So there you go. I'll be digging into this over the next little while, and any parts that are significant or worth remembering, I will try and share them with you. I'm sure the whole book is worth remembering, but I'm just doing this as a personal review. So if there's something that jumps out at me, I will definitely take time to share it with you. I haven't done much reading for the last little while, so I'm happy to have found this book to get me back into reading as I so often like to do. God bless you for watching. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. We'll talk to you again really soon. And in the meantime, if I see any topical events in the news that come up that are worth talking about, whether it's economics or politics or what have you, I'll try and keep in touch on those issues as well. It's great to spend time chatting with you. I really enjoy it. And I hope that you're doing well and that you're going to have yourself a blessed summer. So thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye for now.